Hey there. Is your husband distant and seems like he doesn't even want to be around you? It may be that your husband is suffering from some sort of unresolved childhood trauma. My name is Danielle Sebastian, and I'm going to talk about something today that isn't often talked about. And that is that unresolved childhood trauma can be affecting your husband's current behavior. I'm going to talk in this video about why sometimes date nights just won't be enough to get that closeness that you want. Before we talk about ways to build a deeper connection and more intimacy, it's essential to recognize why childhood trauma survivors find it so hard to open up and be vulnerable. It is understandable why trust is one of the most important, but also one of the most difficult things for survivors to give away. After a heartbreaking past, it can be very difficult for someone to trust again. They may also have a lot of fear about someone getting too close. If that person gets close, they are afraid that they will just get hurt again. And the third thing is that there may be other underlying emotional, deep seated issues that are causing issues with communication, with getting close, with anger, and even sometimes withdrawal. When you and your husband are struggling to be close and to have that intimacy, it is totally natural to think that having date nights and spending more time together may be the solution. But what I found is that trying to schedule date nights when my husband was struggling actually made things worse. My story started 12 years ago when I married my dream guy on a beach in Kauai. It wasn't long after we were married that I started to notice behaviors that I just didn't understand. My husband was withdrawing to the basement when there was any sort of conflict or anything that made him uncomfortable. There was also an uncontrollable need in my husband to control everything about his environment. And this caused a lot of stress. But most importantly, what I noticed is that I was just not able to break through. My husband, every time we got close, it seemed like he just pulled away. When I couldn't break through these behaviors, that's when I started to do my research. I was reading books like, at the time, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, the 5 love languages. And it seemed like when there wasn't any closeness or intimacy, that their recommendation was just to spend time together, was to schedule time and have date nights and really work on communication that way. But this just did not work for me and my husband. And it was only after I decided that I needed to take a break that my husband was able to reveal his terrible history of childhood abuse at the hands of the Catholic Church. I was the only person that he had ever told for his entire life. Now, it was only at this point that we were able to really start dealing with the behaviors that I was seeing. What I found was that the coping mechanisms that he had established to survive his childhood just were not serving us in our relationship. So, what can you do? I'm going to talk through the 3 steps that I took in order to start building more closeness in my marriage. The first thing that I had to do was I had to educate myself. The more that you can understand childhood trauma and the behaviors you're seeing, the more empathy and patience you will have to start building new coping mechanisms in your relationships that will serve you better. The second thing I had to do is I had to separate myself from those trauma behaviors. I had to realize that when my husband was being distant or withdrawing or getting angry over little things, that it was not always my fault. It wasn't that he didn't want to be with me. It was just that this is how he had always coped with that uncomfortable feeling of people getting too close. The third thing that I had to do was to create a safe space for him to feel comfortable in starting to share. I had to be open and honest and tell him that I was there. I could handle whatever it was that he had to tell me, whatever it was that he was feeling. But at the same time, I couldn't push him to tell me things. I just had to say things like, I'm here for you when you need it. You just let me know when you're ready to talk. I also found that creating that safe space didn't really come from scheduling date nights. It came more from having spontaneous times that were good for both of us, to go on a walk, to sit on the couch and talk. It seemed like when I tried to schedule time when he was feeling really uncomfortable and sad and had a lot of emotions, that was not successful. And after we were able to create more trust in our relationship, we also did seek professional help from someone who was experienced in trauma recovery. And now we have been happily married for 12 years. I have a stepdaughter and a son, and my husband and I have a healthy and happy relationship. And I want to share more with you. I want to stop the silence of women who are supporting their husbands through childhood trauma recovery and who are trying to do it alone. So I have more resources on my website, which I'm going to link to, but I also have an additional video that talks through the 4 secrets that I learned that helped keep my marriage together. And it also has some communication tips, things to say that won't make things worse. Thanks so much for watching today.